On Sunday, the 29th of November, Liverpool defender Andy Robertson will be speaking to the Liverpool Echo live on Facebook from 7:30, as well as speaking about his charity AR26 and his book Robbo, Now You're Gonna Believe Us, Our Year, My Story. He'll also be answering your questions. If you want to put your question to Robbo, simply follow the link in the description of this podcast, fill in the form and press submit. It really is that simple. Remember, Sunday the 29th of November, 7:30 on Facebook. Just follow the link, fill in the form, and Robbo could be answering your question.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
Liverpool 0, Atalanta 2. The Reds squandering the chance for early Champions League knockout stage qualification. Welcome to the Debrief Live here on the Blood Red channel. I'm Guy Clarke. Along with me, Theo Squires and Matt Addison will be dissecting the defeat, discussing the team selection, and debating the impact the result could well have for Jurgen Klopp. Matt, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, mate. You've just broken up there. I assume you were asking about a disappointing performance, really, for Liverpool. Really disjointed. I know there was a lot of changes, really, in that team, but there's no real excuse. There's lots of matches, lots of different things that Liverpool could point to, but I'm sure Theo will agree with me. It was a pretty disappointing night, I think, for Liverpool, and a real shock because they've been playing really, really well the last few matches, but it just didn't look like a Liverpool team there tonight.
That was a disappointing one. Theo, what did you make of it?
I think after the Leicester game, we pretty much said that every single one of the players had their game, didn't they? They were all on top form. Today, it was the complete opposite. None of them were on top of their game. They all looked very disappointing. And I think Jurgen Klopp probably got his team wrong, to be honest. Like, when the team dropped, I was looking at the selection and thinking there was a couple of questionable decisions in there. Not saying the kids did particularly anything wrong as such, but two young defenders against a tough team like Atalanta was always going to be a bit dicey. Having Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah both in the starting 11 when Sadio's looked tired in recent games and Mohamed Salah's back from having barely trained recently. It's another questionable one. And then Divock Origi's not played for a while, has he? And he just didn't have a good game again. And you think, well, all this pieced together, Liverpool never looked like threatening. They looked complacent. From the very first minute, they looked like a team that had made these 5 changes. Whereas Atalanta looked like a side that wanted revenge, didn't they? Having lost 5-0 in Italy, they were never going to roll over at Anfield. They wanted to show what they're really about. And I think Liverpool should have seen that coming. Maybe it was complacency or whatever other excuses you want to throw at it. If there had been a crowd there, I can pretty sure say that such a performance wouldn't have happened from Liverpool because the fans wouldn't have allowed them to it. Like, they could have gone through. This is what was on the cards tonight. And while they've still got the 2 games to turn it around, it's bitterly disappointing for when you've got that momentum to build up going into the tournament to the knockout stages, when you have those opportunities to rest players, and they've almost thrown it away now. So they're going to have to go properly perform with a proper team against Ajax.
Yeah, if you want to get your sort of used to us on away, we'll try and put as many on screen and read a few of them out. But Matt, Theo alluded to it there. He said the word complacency. Of course, last time these two sides met, Liverpool won 5-0 out in Bergamo. Do you think there was a bit of complacency, or what are you putting it down to?
It's really difficult to put it down to any one thing. I think possibly there was a little bit of complacency in there from Liverpool. I think that would only be natural. But at the same time, they are, of course, a really professional team. They're, Jurgen Klopp would have, I think, probably prioritised, intentionally or otherwise, it would have rubbed off on the players that, the priority this week was Saturday, was Brighton. He's made obviously a big deal of the fact that it's a 12:30 kickoff. He wasn't best pleased with that. I don't think it was necessarily complacency in terms of they've beaten Atalanta 5-0. This was going to be easy, because I don't think professional footballers would be, in a mindset of something like that going into a game. But I do think potentially the fact that he's made changes, the fact that, this, as I say, was not the priority out of, this game and the Brighton game. I think Jurgen Klopp had made it pretty clear to everyone that Saturday was more of a priority. I think maybe subconsciously that had an impact on them, but even then, you don't expect the drop-off to be quite as big as what it was there today. I think obviously there's a couple of players coming into the side. I don't think it probably helped that you had both full-backs, you had a young centre-back in there as well. I don't think any of them performed particularly poorly, but I think if you make wholesale changes, you probably want to do that in other areas rather than in the defence. So I think there was a couple of contributing factors potentially, but complacency, I'd find it difficult to put it down purely to complacency.
We'll get on to the team selection shortly. A lot of people having their say on that one. But Alan Cooper, as it says there, 0 shots on target, Theo. I can't remember the last time that happened for Liverpool, certainly at Anfield.
Yeah, it's a strange statistic that's going to be there thrown against them. And it's one where we're saying it where 2 of the front 3 were playing. And when Divock Origi, it was an opportunity for him to stake his claim to show why he shouldn't be down the pecking order. But Liverpool never looked like they were going to threaten the goalkeeper. They never looked like they were going to create anything. The midfield were lost in the middle of the park. Front 3 weren't on the ball enough at all. Can't remember at any point in the game looking at it and thinking that there was a goal coming. As soon as Atalanta scored in the second half, pretty much thought that's game done. There is nothing there that was Liverpool showing any inspiration for them to grab the game by the scruff of the neck and find a way back. It's one of those where players are allowed off games, but for them all to have an off game at the same time when you've seen an 11 all have a good game at the same time against Leicester in a matter of days, it's something unprecedented. And you just got to hope it's a one-off. Like we had the same sort of negativity after the Aston Villa defeat, saying you just got to hope it's a one-off. It's one of those days. Granted, this is now a second one in 2-3 months, but there are going to be more days like this in a season like this, as we've been saying all along. It's been warned all along. It's why Jurgen Klopp makes such a noise about there being too many games and too much strain on the players that they can't play full speed every single week. It's just surprising, I suppose, to see Salah and Mane have an off day on the same an off game on the same day, and then it's the injury crisis stacking up again when Jurgen Klopp's midfield options are so limited that he couldn't really rotate much in the midfield today, and it showed.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, let's get on to the team selection then. Mohamed Salah did come back into the side. Divock Origi was also given a start, as was Kostas, Tsimikas, and both Reece Williams and Nico Williams coming into the starting 11 as well, Matt. Divock Origi, though, I think is, off the top of my head, his first start since the home game with Midtjylland at Anfield in the Champions League. He's really sort of, I suppose, in a bit of a funk at the moment. Can't seem to find any form, no matter if he's playing off the left or even sort of in that preferred role down the middle tonight.
Yeah, it was a real disappointing performance from him. I think it was a real surprise for me that he was the one who was selected. If you'd have asked me if Roberto Firmino and Diogo Jota were not going to be there, who would be the third one, you'd think it would be Takumi Minamino. And I think it's probably a little bit of a kick in the teeth for him, the fact that even with all those changes, he still didn't get a look in for Liverpool. I think he certainly would have done a better job than what we saw from Origi today. I don't know what Origi is doing in training to convince Klopp to play him in these matches, but he just hasn't quite found that form. As you say, he didn't look sharp, he didn't look quick, he seemed to have lost a bit of pace, which is something that he does have on Roberto Firmino in terms of playing in that number 9 role, but he just didn't show it at all tonight. And I've been slightly critical of Firmino at times this season. He hasn't maybe been performing at his best, but I do think we saw tonight a little bit what the contrast between those two players is, because even when Firmino has been poor, he's certainly not been as bad as what Origi was. He's certainly knitted the play together. Even once or twice, it would have been a good thing to see from Origi, but yeah, he just didn't get started at all. Really, didn't have the best of games, and I suppose the only sort of thing that saves Origi going forward is that there are so many matches. There's going to be more opportunities for him to have starts, whether that's down the middle, whether that's on the left side, who knows. But yeah, I think Origi, very, very disappointing. A big chance missed for him. But as I say, I think the thing that saves him going forward is that Klopp will have no choice but to rotate again, and he will get another opportunity at some point, even though he probably doesn't deserve it.
Yeah, what did you make of Kostas Tsimikas? We've obviously not seen a great deal of him. We've had to wait to see him, and he was given a go from the start tonight.
He looked like a player that we haven't seen a lot of. You think with new signings, they do need time to bed into a new country. And we've seen it before with Liverpool, with Jurgen Klopp, where he prefers to give the overseas players, when they're coming in, the opportunities in the Champions League. But it was always going to be a tough night for him against a tough side when he was in a new look defence. Like, it's different if he'd had Virgil van Dijk alongside him, Trent Alexander-Arnold on the other flank, and it's a more coherent Liverpool backline. But when it was makeshift, when it's a new centre-back partnership, yet again, he was always going to find things difficult. Maybe that's why Sadio Mane was given the nod, so there was a bit of familiarity in front of him. But I think within minutes of Robertson coming on, he showed the difference there. I think he put in a really good cross, didn't he, straight away, and while Atalanta got it away. It was like, well, that's the quality, that's the difference. You have to get used to Liverpool's style. And I think commentators alluded to it, that there was a bit of nervousness from Tsimikas. He wasn't quite sure how attacking he should go. There was one moment I remember where he was in the corner, wasn't he? And rather than get the cross in, he was like wrestling with three players, trying to win it back, trying to retain possession. He got a silly book in. He looked like a player who hasn't played much football. It's too early to write him off or anything, because it wasn't the worst performance. But it's why he's just an understudy, and you can't see Andy Robertson getting challenged for a starting role properly. It's one where, well, how is he going to get up to his match sharpness, get up to be match fit when the opportunities won't come, when Robertson is going to be the undisputed first choice left back? But then he probably knew that joining Liverpool. Like, it would take a big ask for any player, any left back, to come to this club and replace Andy Robertson as left back to stake a claim. He's just going to have to take whatever opportunities he can when he gets them, bed in as he can, impress in training, and then try and do the job when he's given the opportunity. But it's always going to be hard when there are so many changes.
Yeah, we saw that it took Andy Robertson a bit of time, and I suppose adapting to exactly the intricacies that Jurgen Klopp demands, perhaps positionally, from his fullbacks. So we'll have to wait and see how Kostas Tsimikas does get on. Of course, he, as you say, he hasn't had all too many games. Let's throw it forward then, Matt. Look ahead to next week in the Champions League against Ajax. They beat Midtjylland. I think it finished 3-1 this evening. So Liverpool didn't qualify and couldn't have even qualified with a draw tonight. They will now have to sort of go into that game again at Anfield. And of course, before that, have the 12:30 kickoff at the weekend against Brighton and Hove Albion to contend with.
Yeah, I think do Liverpool need a draw now against Ajax to confirm their place in the last 16? I think I'm right in saying that. So this result tonight, I think it is one that Jurgen Klopp just has to write off, forget about, and go, well, they're going to get a point, aren't they, in the next two matches in the Champions League? I'm pretty confident that tonight isn't going to throw them off. They're still going to get through. So I think it would have been good to get it wrapped up. Then, of course, you can make changes like Jurgen Klopp did tonight in those last two matches and not really have any pressure on you to get anything. But yeah, you'd still fancy Liverpool to at least get a point against Ajax at Anfield next week. In terms of Brighton, obviously that now becomes, I think, a little bit more significant. I think Jurgen Klopp will want to prove a little bit of a point. His players will have to prove a point. The fact that they have made changes tonight, I think, puts a little bit of pressure on Liverpool to go into the game on Saturday and get those 3 points. If they get the 3 points and then they at least draw with Ajax next week, I think we look back on this Atalanta game in a very different light. I think as long as Liverpool win it at the weekend, I think then Jurgen Klopp is justified in the changes that he's made. Of course, he will point out the fact that there's so many matches, he didn't really have any choice. He had to make changes at some point. But certainly, I think, looking from the outside, if Liverpool and, say, Roberto Firmino and Diogo Jota come into the side having been rested tonight and, score a goal each and Liverpool win at the weekend, certainly then you'd say that tonight is completely behind them and completely forgotten about. So, yeah, it's a disappointing night, a disappointing result, but moving forward, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. I just will point out as well, I thought Sadio Mane looked pretty tired. I think he's only scored 2 in 9 games now, so I wonder whether we'll see him at the weekend. I wonder if the plan maybe was to play him tonight and bring Jota and Firmino in alongside Salah at the weekend. But yeah, we'll have to see. I'm sure, Jurgen Klopp and his team have got a plan, and I'm sure, we'll see a much improved performance on Saturday.
Yeah, thanks to all those who have got in touch with us tonight and shared your thoughts with us here on the Debrief live on the Blood Red channel. Don't forget, Jurgen Klopp's post-match press conference will be coming up on the YouTube channel, so do stick around for that. The Liverpool.com and Blood Red podcasts will follow in the next few days as well, dissecting the result and, of course, looking ahead to the weekend's visit to Brighton and Hove Albion. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Matt Addison and Theo Squires, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.
This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.